Chapter 363. After Yu Qianqiu went into the water for a few meters, he knew that he was in trouble and immediately fled in panic. Although the power of the green fire was great, the time it appeared was too short. Only the top few meters of the frozen river had melted, and the bottom was still solid ice. It could only be blamed that the environment of this era was too good. There was no pollution, and the water was as clean as anything. It could be seen clearly at the depth of a few meters. In addition, with the ice at the bottom of the water as a foil, every move of Yu Qianqiu underwater was seen by Luo Qingtian, who was above. This made Luo Qingtian feel strange. Why was he able to see that brat without using his divine sense? Luo Qingtian was slightly stunned, but he immediately understood. He chuckled and chased after Yu Qianqiu in his ragged clothes. He quickly blocked Yu Qianqiu's path and held his sword high with both hands. The sword in his hand turned into a huge sword shadow and fiercely slashed toward the river. Bang! There was a loud sound. The river was slashed by a white chain, and a water curtain that was hundreds of meters long and tens of meters high exploded. The people on the shore couldn't see the situation at the bottom of the river because of the different angle. When they saw Luo Qingtian's crazy action, they were all confused. The sound transmission effect in the water was not bad. It made Yu Qianqiu dizzy. The huge undercurrent that surged from the bottom of the river immediately rolled him back. He didn't think much and retreated more than 10 meters. His body lit up with green fire, and he directly turned into ice and drilled into the layer of ice. Luo Qingtian chased after him again and was stunned again. There was a green lantern-like ball of light in the layer of ice below. It was really eye-catching. He couldn't help but laugh and said, "Yu Qianqiu, let's see where you can escape to this time." He ran to the front and raised a huge sword shadow to slash down. When the water splashed down, Luo Qingtian actually drilled into the water along with the splashes. Dongfang Chang Ao and Qiu Weiyuan rose into the air at the same time. When they saw the big green lantern at the bottom of the river, they immediately understood everything. The two of them looked at each other and cursed in their hearts. What was the difference between this brat and burying his head in the sand? There was a huge wave on the surface of the river, and a layer of ice as wide as the river emerged from the bottom of the river. It turned out that Luo Qingtian had moved the ice that was stuck to the bottom of the river. The buoyancy of the ice layer was great, and it immediately floated when it was removed from the bottom of the river. In the big ice that was 100 meters in length and width, there was a shining green shadow swimming around. They didn't need to guess to know that it was Yu Qianqiu. Luo Qingtian was deliberately making a fool of Yu Qianqiu. He wanted to use this method to regain some face. The shining green light in the ice suddenly disappeared, as if Yu Qianqiu felt. Yu Qianqiu. Yu Qianqiu suddenly realized that the ice, and you had Yu Qianqiu. The flickering cyan light in the ice suddenly disappeared, as if it had sensed the arrival of danger. Just now, when the ice was shaking, Yu Qianqiu had felt that it was strange. He had accidentally discovered that he could vaguely see the sun in the sky. It was impossible for this to happen underwater. His heart suddenly sank, and he felt that something was wrong. The green fire quickly disappeared, and he immediately realized that the whole space of the ice layer was bright. Needless to say, with the basic knowledge from his previous life, he immediately judged that the ice layer had surfaced. The word danger immediately appeared in his mind. Luo Qingtian saw that the green light in the ice disappeared, and he paused for a moment. He immediately waved the huge sword shadow without hesitation, and slashed at the place where the light was. Suddenly, a green flame broke through the ice layer and burned fiercely. The huge sword shadow was a shadow formed by sword chi, so it was not afraid of the green fire. It immediately broke through the green fire, and with a loud bang, it directly cut the big ice layer with a radius of 100 meters into two. The people who were concerned about Yu Qianqiu immediately turned pale. They didn't know what happened to him. Ze bit her lips tightly. She firmly believed that Elder Bai's disciple would definitely not get into trouble so easily. Luo Qingtian retracted his sword qi, held the sword, and stood steadily on the shaking ice layer. His pair of sharp eyes looked around. Before confirming that Yu Qianqiu was dead, he didn't dare to release his divine sense to scan again. He didn't know what strange method Yu Qianqiu used to damage his divine sense. That feeling was simply unforgettable. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been frozen by Yu Qianqiu. At this moment, in the shaking ice layer, a figure dragged two black shadows and shot out from not far in front of Luo Qingtian. At some point, Yu Qianqiu had pulled out two strange-looking sabers. The sabers were 2 meters long and half a meter wide. They were black and shiny, and they didn't look like anything out of place. Not many people would be able to tell what style they were. Yu Qianqiu didn't care what style it was, as long as it was convenient to use. These two swords were suppressed by him using black fire. They imitated the style of the machetes used in his previous life, but they were enlarged a lot. However, the grip area wasn't enlarged, so it looked a little out of place. This sword was taken from the Netherworld Fire Sea. I don't believe it's useless. Yu Qianqiu roared in his heart. He jumped down from the sky and slashed at Luo Qingtian with the machetes in his hands. Such a big sword made Luo Qingtian slightly stunned. He flipped his hand and a silver-white sword qi shot out, attacking the two big swords that were slashing at him. Swoosh, swoosh. The two big black swords cut through the sword qi as if they were cutting a piece of paper. Luo Qingtian and Yu Qianqiu were stunned. The former was shocked, and the latter didn't know that the black fire swords could cut through the sword qi. According to common sense, if it could block the sword qi of a master without being damaged, it was already a good treasure. They had never seen such a situation before. In fact, Yu Qianqiu didn't know how powerful the black fire was. Just think about it, after the burning black smoke formed a wind blade, it could break through the protective aura and easily cut through the dark steel, let alone the big swords formed by the black fire itself. Good swords. Dongfang Chang Ao and Qiu Weiyuan exclaimed immediately. The people watching the battle were amazed. They didn't expect that there was such a magic weapon in this world that could cut through the sword qi of a master as easily as cutting a piece of paper. Greed appeared in many people's eyes. The four patriarchs of the four major families exchanged glances. The four of them were favored by Bai Changchun, and each of them was rewarded with a low-grade spiritual treasure. Naturally, they thought that the strange swords in Yu Qianqiu's hands were good treasures given by Bai Changchun. After Luo Qingtian recovered from the shock, he immediately waved his sword to block the swords. Ding! The two big black machetes showed their power again. They directly cut the sword in Luo Qingtian's hands into 3 pieces. It was still effortless. Luo Qingtian was shocked. The swords were already in front of him, and he quickly dodged more than 10 meters away. He looked at the sword hilt in his hand and was speechless. This was the high-grade offensive magic weapon passed down by the Daluo sex patriarch. How could it be so easily chopped off by someone with a knife? He really couldn't believe it. The sword of the Daluo sex patriarch was also famous in the cultivation world. Anyone with a little common sense would know what kind of treasure it was. Now it was cut by someone just like that. The onlookers were so shocked that they couldn't speak. Even Dongfang Chang Ao and Qiu Weiyuan were dumbfounded. Only the four patriarchs showed an expression as if they had expected it. Everyone looked at the two strange but inconspicuous big swords in Yu Qianqiu's hands and immediately thought of a possibility. Could it be a legendary spiritual treasure? Otherwise, with Yu Qianqiu's cultivation, how could he easily destroy a high-grade magic weapon? Suddenly, everyone's eyes were burning. Yu Qianqiu became more and more courageous as the battle went on. He was having a great time fighting, so why did his opponent run away? He shouted, old thing, don't run." He carried a pair of large sabers and chased after them again. When the spectators heard this, their foreheads were instantly filled with cold sweat. This brat was unforgiving when he had the upper hand, and he was addicted to fighting. Qiu Wuyuan lowered his head and sighed helplessly. "Luo Qingtian, you've really embarrassed yourself today." Daluo mountain splitting palm. Luo Qingtian shouted before he could stand still. He raised his hand and a huge palm shadow appeared. F***CK. Yu Qianzhou screamed and quickly stopped. If he was hit by this palm, his life would be in danger. Therefore, without saying anything, he threw a large saber with force, and the blade pointed directly at Luo Qingtian. When Luo Qingtian saw that his opponent actually abandoned the treasure to protect himself, a flash of joy appeared on his face. The Daluo sect leader's inheritance treasure was destroyed in his hands. If he could get a better treasure back, not only would he not be guilty, but he would also be rewarded. In an instant, he had an idea. He instantly retracted the power of the mountain-splitting palm. His body moved to the side to avoid the blade, and he easily grabbed the handle of the saber. Not good. Dongfang Chang, Ao and Qiu Wuyuan screamed at the same time. The latter's eyes were burning as he said, "If such a treasure falls into Luo Qingtian's hands, I'm afraid it won't be able to return." The moment Luo Qingtian grabbed the saber, he immediately felt the majestic and breathtaking power from the saber. It was a kind of power that seemed to come from the netherworld. It was a kind of power that could decide a person's life and death. It was gloomy, terrifying, cold, ruthless. At that moment, all kinds of extreme negative emotions spread from the saber. Luo Qingtian's body trembled, and he couldn't hide the surprise on his face. He held the saber and laughed wildly. "It's really a good saber. I've never seen such a treasure in my life." Ha! The eyes of the spectators were filled with greed again. This saber could be so affirmed by Luo Qingtian, so it was definitely not something that an ordinary treasure could compare with. Moreover, everyone had witnessed the power from before. "Yu Qianzhou, you destroyed my Daluo sect's inherited treasure. Now, your saber can be used as a scapegoat. From today onwards, it belongs to my Daluo sect." Luo Qingtian pointed the long saber at Yu Qianzhou and said. On the shore, the group of Daluo sect disciples were also filled with joy. Yu Qianzhou silently put away the saber in his hand into his storage pouch, as if the fight was already over. Everyone suddenly realized that the deadline of 100 moves had long since passed. The sect master of the exalted immortal sect would not go back on his word. The water had already reached the top of everyone's shoes, but no one cared about it now. With so many people coming, Luo Qingtian bit his lips and endured the pain to not make a sound. The arm that he used to hold the saber was shaking non-stop. Everyone suddenly realized that Luo Qingtian's palm had already turned into white bones. There was a dark murderous aura on the wound, and it was still spreading to his arm. Wherever the murderous aura went, pieces of flesh would fall off. When they fell on the ice, they would slowly corrode and turn into blood. The situation was too horrible to look at. According to this situation, if the murderous aura didn't stop spreading, it wouldn't take long for Luo Qingtian to turn into a skeleton. Chapter 365. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. They all turned to look at the saber that was stabbed into the ground beside Yu Qianzhou. They didn't know what was on the saber, but it was able to injure someone so badly just by holding it. Everyone suspected that there was poison on the saber, and it wasn't an ordinary poison. Otherwise, with Luo Qingtian's cultivation, how could he be injured like this? Daluo sect's shop manager, Yi Haiping, suddenly walked to Dongfang Chang, Ao's side and bowed with a sorrowful expression. Elder Dongfang, Fuxian Island is the leader of the righteous sects in the cultivation world. Daluo sect is also a part of the righteous sections. I hope Elder Dongfang can find a way to save our sect leader. These words were immediately met with a cold snort from Chiao Wuyuan. This kind of injury was extremely strange. What method could Dongfang Changao have to treat it? It was just that he had offended Yu Qianqiu, so he couldn't ask for help. Instead, he blamed Fuxian Island and asked Dongfang Chang'ao to help. The righteous sects were all deceiving people. Dongfang Chang'ao frowned. How could he not understand what Yi Haiping meant? He looked a little hesitant, but he was actually overjoyed. If he could get the antidote from Yu Qianqiu to cure Luo Qingtian, he could bring Yu Qianqiu back to Fuxian Island. Daluo sect would owe him a favor, and the sect would praise him for doing it properly. With this consideration, he turned to Yu Qianqiu and said, Yu Qianqiu, sect leader Luo said that after 100 moves, the grudge between you and Daluo sect will be over. You don't have to worry about it anymore. If you have the antidote, why don't you take it out now and end this as soon as possible? Yu Qianqiu looked at Elder Dongfang, who used to be in the sect, and shook his head. Elder Dongfang, I don't have the antidote, and I don't need it. This isn't poison. It's just the killing intent on the saber. The injured can't be cured. Killing intent. Everyone was shocked and looked at the saber. It had a strange black luster, but they couldn't see anything strange about it. When Yu Qianqiu saw that the group didn't believe him, he flicked his finger on the blade. With a wang-wang sound, the big black blade immediately emitted a faint black mist. Those who were close to it shivered, feeling a chill that seeped into their bones. One by one, they retreated, especially afraid of being touched by the black mist. Nice blade. Chiao Wuyuan couldn't help but exclaim. Dongfang Chang'ao looked at the saber from top to bottom in disbelief. Although the saber was vicious, it was a good treasure. The greed in everyone's eyes was faintly discernible and difficult to conceal. Yu Qianqiu swept a cold glance over and snorted, Those who have designs on my saber, listen up. This saber is stuck here. If you have the ability, take it. I, Yu Qianqiu, will not say a word. Is there such a good thing? The group of people was suddenly eager to try, but no one dared to step forward. After all, Luo Qingtian was already in such a state with his cultivation. Sect leader. A group of Daluo sect disciples suddenly exclaimed. Everyone's attention immediately shifted from the saber to Luo Qingtian's body. They saw that his injured arm was gone, and an arm that was almost completely corroded into bones was lying on the ground. The bones were also slowly rotting in the wind. This Luo Qingtian was really cruel to himself. When he heard that there was no cure, in order to save his life, he actually took action himself and used his left hand to remove his right arm. However, this was still a good way to save his life. Although he lost an arm, his life was at least saved. Yu Qianqiu raised his eyebrows slightly. In fact, it wasn't that he couldn't save Luo Qingtian. He could completely absorb the killing intent, but he wouldn't do that. His thought was that since they were opponents, they should have the awareness of being opponents. It was a bit ridiculous to expect an opponent to save an opponent. How could there be such a good thing all the time, unless the opponent had some ulterior motives? This was the reality that both the winner and the loser had to face. There was no such thing as logic. Luo Qingtian was indeed a character, at least in front of everyone. After he stood up with the help of the inner sect disciples, he stared at Yu Qianqiu with a pale face and said, "From today onwards, the grievances between me and Daluo sect and Yu Qianqiu, will be written off." He was indeed qualified to say such words on behalf of Daluo sect. After he finished speaking, he was helped away by the disciples. However, everyone could clearly see the resentment in those disciples' eyes as they looked at Yu Qianqiu before they left. Yu Qianqiu snorted coldly. He was even more determined to settle the score with Daluo sect. He would not show any mercy. The dignified Daluo sect leader ended up like this. The entire Daluo sect's face was lost. Everyone sighed incessantly. When they looked at Yu Qianqiu again, they suddenly came to a realization. This guy was definitely a famous figure in the cultivation world. He'd challenged the exalted immortal sect master one-on-one, and won. After one night, his name would probably shake the entire cultivation world. Although he did not win with his own cultivation, Dharma arts and treasures were also part of his strength. There was nothing to doubt about that. By right, the crowd should have dispersed by now, but they were still lingering. Naturally, they were still drooling over the treasured saber. Who asked Yu Qianqiu to say that? Brother Yu. Qiu Weiyuan rubbed his hands together and said with some embarrassment, "You said that the saber will belong to whoever can take it away. Is that true? Senior Qiu, you've known me for so many years. When have you ever seen me lie?" Yu Qianqiu smiled and continued, "But I advise Senior Qiu not to try. Why don't you watch the show?" Qiu Weiyuan was a little hesitant. What if someone else took away such a good thing? However, he wasn't confident either. In the end, he pursed his lips and said reluctantly, "What a pity. All right, I'll listen to you. As if I'm confident that you'll listen to me." Yu Qianqiu retracted his smile and looked around. He said in a deep voice, "I don't have time to play with everyone here. If anyone wants to try, come at me. If there's no one else, I'll be keeping the saber and leaving." Even though everyone was eager to try, there were a few experts present who did not say anything. Naturally, it was not convenient for the rest to take the lead. Unexpectedly, someone behind Yu Qianqiu asked weakly, "Can I go and try?" It was a woman's voice. Yu Qianqiu almost fainted when he heard that. "I set up the arena here with a plan. Why did you come and ruin my plan?" The person who said this was none other than Zi. She was also excited to see such a treasure. However, how could Yu Qianqiu let her try? He was afraid that she would take it away the moment she took it. He didn't dare to hurt her. "Others can, but not you." Yu Qianqiu rejected her straightforwardly. This time, Zi couldn't take it anymore. She turned to face him and asked coldly, "Why can others but not me? It's fine if you're stubborn, but why did you come out and ruin my plans?" Yu Qianqiu couldn't get angry at her. He kicked the back of the saber, and the saber tilted. He grabbed the handle and pulled it out. He looked around and said, "I, Yu Qianqiu, am an honest person. I don't talk nonsense. Words that have been spoken are like water that has been spilled. There's no way to take them back. However, I see that everyone here is very polite. It's not a good idea to keep giving way. How about this? Patriarch Wu." He turned around and shouted, "How many spirit stones do you think my saber is worth?" Wu Sihai came closer and said in surprise, What do you want to do? Do you want to sell the saber? Don't think too much. If I auction this saber, what do you think the starting price will be?" Yu Qianqiu smiled. Hearing this, many people's eyes lit up. They had the same doubts as Wu Sihai. Wu Sihai looked at him suspiciously and said in a deep voice, "If you auction it, the origin, name, material, power, and whether it can be used repeatedly are all factors that determine the price." Yu Qianqiu looked at the crowd and said with a smile, "It said that someone brought this saber out from the Eastern Holy Land. As for his origin, I don't know anything. However, one thing is for sure. It can definitely be used repeatedly. I've used it for a very long time." "What, the legendary Eastern Holy Land?" A wave of exclamations came from all directions. Experienced cultivators had all heard of this place. It was the ruins of an ancient war. Something that could come out from there might be a spirit treasure. No wonder this saber's power was so domineering. It turned out that it came from the Eastern Holy Land. Ze frowned in doubt. Who would have the ability to bring something out from the Eastern Holy Land? Yu Qianqiu didn't care about everyone's glowing eyes. He looked at Wu Sihai and said, "Just estimate the starting price for the auction. Don't be too high, 100 million high-grade spirit stones." Wu Sihai was silent for a while and finally spat out this number. "That's too high." Yu Qianqiu said in a clear voice, "I, Yu Qianqiu, am a man of my word. I said that whoever can draw this saber will have this saber. I won't go back on my word. However, it seems that everyone has a lot of scruples. I'm afraid that those who don't have the ability will lose their lives in vain. Here, I, Yu Qianqiu, solemnly declare to the entire cultivation world that in 3 days, I will be holding a saber-drawing conference on Hat Island. In order to prevent people with bad intentions from causing trouble, those who draw the saber must pay 10 million high-grade spirit stones in advance. The time limit is 15 minutes. Of course, those who have more money can try again as long as they pay." Chapter 366. What if it's really taken away by 10 million high-grade spirit stones? Are you really willing to let someone take away such a treasure? Someone in the crowd shouted. Yu Qianqiu pointed at the knee-deep river and laughed heartily. "This floating ice can't bear the burden anymore. Let's talk about it after we get ashore." He kept the saber and rode his flying sword to the shore first. The group of people was too engrossed in the treasure and didn't care about what was happening under their feet. After Yu Qianqiu reminded them, they all went ashore. When almost everyone was there, Yu Qianqiu pointed at the person who spoke earlier and said, "I won't hide it from you. I, Yu Qianqiu, will say anything. I've never lied since I was young. It's innate and can't be changed. If someone really took away the saber with 10 million high-grade spirit stones, not only will I not regret it, but I will also congratulate him. Today, I'll leave this statement here. Everyone can be a witness. The time limit is 15 minutes. Isn't the time too short?" Someone asked again. However, those who asked this question were basically people who could afford 10 million. Yu Qianqiu explained enthusiastically, "It won't do if there's no time limit. If someone takes a few days to draw the saber, what will happen to the people behind them?" Many people laughed secretly. It seemed like some people really had this thought, 10 million per person, isn't it a little expensive? Another person asked. "It's not expensive. It's not expensive at all." Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and said, "Just now, Clan Head Wu estimated it at 100 million. Everyone heard it. Wu Clan has a foothold in the cultivation world because of their reputation. I believe everyone won't doubt it. If I, Yu Qianqiu, am really greedy, I won't set the price at 10 million. I'll directly set it at 100 million. Originally, I didn't want to charge a single spirit stone for this saber drawing conference. But after thinking about it, I can't accept it. If you don't accept it, then everyone in the cultivation world will flock here. Everyone will want to have a try, and there will definitely be a big mess. But if you set the price too high, wouldn't you? That would be unfair to those who have the ability but not enough money, so I directly reduced the price of 100 million to 10 million. This way, there would be a threshold for more people to participate, and it would also avoid unnecessary trouble. Yu Qianqiu, you said that those who can afford to pay can try again. For most people, this is not fair enough. If some people fail to pull it out, they won't have a second chance. But those who have money can try again." The person who spoke turned around and asked the crowd, "Everyone, don't you think it's unfair?" Immediately, many people joined in and jeered, Yes, it's not fair. Everyone can only try once." The scene became a little chaotic. Without saying a word, Yu Qianqiu took out the machete from his storage pouch. The machete immediately emitted a breathtaking aura. It was as if the entire machete was possessed by a demon from the netherworld. Under the sun, there was not even the slightest bit of reflection. Those who were near the machete shuddered and retreated. The scene quietened down and everyone's eyes focused on the machete. Although the machete did not look like much, its power was unquestionable. It was definitely a good treasure. Yu Qianqiu did not say anything. He held the machete horizontally and let everyone admire it. Peeping at other people's treasures was also a taboo in the cultivation world. But now, the owner of the treasure was so generous, so everyone naturally would not miss the opportunity to carefully examine it. However, some people were restless. They could not get enough of looking at it with their eyes. They actually released their divine senses to check, hoping to peep at the mysteries within. This time, it was lively. Immediately, more than a dozen screams came from the crowd. The dozen people held their heads with their hands and lay on the ground, wailing. The others immediately became vigilant, not knowing what was happening. Yu Qianqiu threw the machete in the air. The machete fell and went straight into the ground beside him. He held the handle with one hand and sneered, "I forgot to remind everyone that this machete is extremely powerful. I don't think any Dharma treasure below the level of a numinous treasure can withstand its sharpness. However, it also has another effect. It can hurt people's divine senses. Sect leader Luo had suffered from it before. I believe these dozen people have used their divine senses to check this treasure just now, right?" So that was the case. Everyone relaxed their vigilance. No one cared about the dozen people who were still groaning in pain. Their eyes focused on the machete again, and their greed could not be concealed. They did not expect this machete to be so magical. It could actually hurt people's divine senses. It was really an amazing treasure. No wonder Luo Qingtian suddenly let out a scream for no reason. It turned out that his divine senses had been hurt by this treasure. Dongfang Chang Ao and Qiu Weiyuan also found it a little difficult to move their eyes away from the machete. What that friend said just now is right. The previous method seems to be a little unfair. How about this? The price and time limit for drawing the machete remain the same. Each person can only do it once. However, there are many rogue cultivators in the cultivation world. They do not belong to any sect. Compared to those who have sects, they are the most disadvantaged. In order to reflect absolute fairness, each sect or family can only send one person to draw the machete. It's still the same saying. The machete belongs to whoever can draw it. What do you think? Yu Qianqiu asked. This was good for most people, but for those big sects, it was a loss. Which sect didn't want to get their hands on such a treasure? However, everyone saw the power of this machete. Even Luo Qingtian could not resist it. Which sect could guarantee that they could draw it? The big sects had a lot of money and experts. They definitely wanted to try a few more times. Yu Qianqiu's words were considered fair, but no one dared to agree. Most people looked at Dongfang Chang Ao and Qiu Weiyuan. And these two people also glanced at the crowd with burning eyes. Because of fairness, the atmosphere was a little gloomy. After waiting for a while, no one said anything. Yu Qianqiu walked to Dongfang Chang Ao and Qiu Weiyuan and bowed. He smiled bitterly and said, "Seniors, please take the lead and say something. Elder Qiu, you know how I am. I always mean what I say." At the beginning, everyone felt that the rules were unfair. I had no choice but to change the rules. But now, no one said anything. I am really in a dilemma. Seniors, please say something for me. Hee hee. Qiu Weiyuan sneered and glanced at the crowd. Brother Yu, I have known you for many years. You are indeed a man of your words. The treasure is yours. You have also set the rules. No one has the right to change the rules. Do what you should, and don't allow others to criticize you. If anyone is dissatisfied with your strength, I will be the first one who can't stand it. Whoever is dissatisfied, come at me. I, Chiu Wuyuan, agree with the original rules and object to the new rules. Dongfang Chang Ao nodded slightly and said, the rules of fairness should be reflected on everyone, not just the sections. There are big and small sects, and there are also different numbers of disciples. We can't let the other disciples lose the chance to fight for the treasure because of the suppression of the elders in the sect. I think the original rules are fairer. His words sounded nice. If a disciple of a sect obtained the treasure, who could keep it for themselves? They would still have to hand it over to the sect. Moreover, how many disciples could take out 10 million yuan? Among the righteous and demonic sects, one was rude and unyielding, while the other was tactful and more skillful. But their goal was the same, which was to agree with the original rules. Since the two leaders of the righteous and demonic sects had spoken, the others didn't dare to have any objections. In the end, they still followed the original rules. Since no one has any objections, please spread the rules of this saber-drawing meet to the entire cultivation world. I, Yu Qianqiu, also hope that this treasure can be obtained by someone capable. Yu Qianqiu cupped his hands at the crowd. He casually picked up the huge saber from the ground and stuffed it into his storage bag. Then, he patted his butt and left. Seeing how easily he drew the saber, everyone's eyes lit up. Chapter 367. The bridge from Hat Island to the Wu clan had been burned. Although the floating ice on the river was enough to carry Yu Qianqiu and the others, they had to fly over. The crowd dispersed one after another, anxious to report back to the sect what had happened here. Dongfang Chang Ao and Chiu Wuyuan watched Yu Qianqiu leave. After a while, the two of them glanced at each other at the same time and snorted disdainfully. The two of them, who had a tacit understanding just a moment ago, split up. In quiet guest house, Yu Qianqiu walked around and unexpectedly didn't see Wu Lixue. However, he didn't have the mood to think too much about it. He wanted to use this opportunity to teach that stubborn girl a lesson. When he returned to the living room, Ziyi was standing there with an embarrassed face. She seemed to have realized her mistake. Humph. Yu Qianqiu sneered, then turned to face her and said in a strange tone, I really don't know why my master sent you to follow me. Hee. Help me. Using the method of working against me to assist me. That's my honor. Thank you for your cooperation. But I've had enough. Now, please go back to Shantian Island and find my master. Tell him that I'm a difficult person to work with. I'm the one who chased you away. You can push all the blame to me. I won't refute it. Then, you can stay in your South Sea purple bamboo forest. Please. I won't send you off. He gestured to the door. Ziyi's slightly drooping face suddenly lifted up. She said with some resentment, You want to chase me away? How can I face Elder Bai like this? What a joke. You also know that you don't have the face to face my master? Yu Qianqiu asked with a sullen face, Do you know why I took out my treasure to hold that sword-drawing assembly? I didn't know at first, but now I know. Ziyi's face drooped again and she said, For the spirit stones. Then do you know why I need the spirit stones? Yu Qianqiu asked bitterly. This time, Ziyi's head drooped even lower. Her voice was almost inaudible as she said, To complete Elder Bai's great trust. So you knew. I thought you didn't know. Yu Qianqiu immediately rebuked him harshly, Then why did you ruin my plan at that critical moment? You keep saying that you want to complete the task that my master entrusted to you. Is this how you complete it? Do you think I would dare to keep you by my side? I think there's no need for you to do anything more, and we can return to Obedient Island to complete our mission. Only Yu Qianqiu could say such harsh words to such a pure and beautiful woman. However, this guy had made up his mind to educate Ziyi. He had to do it while this girl was still pure. Otherwise, if she became as cunning as the enchantress of 100 charms, he wouldn't be able to fool her even if he wanted to. So, he had to take the opportunity to educate her. From now on, he had to make her firmly believe that everything Yu Qianqiu said and did was right. I was wrong, don't chase me back. Zi lowered her head as she said this. She actually started to sob. Ah. Yu Qianqiu was startled. He didn't think that he could make a late-stage transcending tribulation cultivator cry. His heart softened a little, but he immediately hardened his heart and said fiercely, I was wrong. What a simple sentence. Does it mean that when someone does something wrong, they just have to say they were wrong and everything will be fine? Then what's the point of fighting and killing in the cultivation world? Zi immediately shook her head and said, don't chase me back. Give me another chance. I won't go against you in the future. I'll do whatever you say. Humph. You say it nicely, but when your temper flares up one day, I'm afraid you'll forget what you said today. Yu Qianqiu expressed his disbelief. I promise. Zi raised her hand and wiped the tears from her eyes. She said seriously, if you don't believe me, I can swear. From the looks of it, you really do know your mistake. Then I'll believe you this once. You don't have to swear it. I believe you won't make me sad again because you're not that kind of stupid woman. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and thought, if your father knows that I made you swear like this, he definitely won't forgive me. After he finished thinking, he took out a spirit pill from his bag of holding and opened his palm in front of Zi. Zi, who had a cautious expression on her face, suddenly had stars appear in her eyes. Yu Qianqiu had a 7-colored spirit pill in his hand. Rich spirit energy surrounded the pill, and it was obvious that it was not an ordinary spirit pill. Actually, whether or not the pill was good wasn't what attracted her, but the beautiful 7-colored light. It was natural for women to love beauty. Here, eat it now. Yu Qianqiu smiled and handed it to Zi. Zi took it suspiciously and asked, what kind of spirit pill is this? Do I eat it now? As soon as she finished speaking, she saw Yu Qianqiu's expression sink. Zi immediately remembered what she had just promised him and swallowed it without hesitation. She stood to the side without saying anything, silently feeling the changes in her body. Yu Qianqiu walked to the chair opposite her and sat down. He smiled and asked, have you heard of the Rui pill? I've heard from my master that it is a rare treasure of the human world. Consuming one can make one youthful, and it can also. Zi paused and pointed at herself in disbelief. She stammered, What I just consumed, could it be? Rui pill. That's right, it's the rare Rui pill you mentioned. Yu Qianqiu smiled. This was what it meant to give a carrot after a stick. He was going to teach her a lesson and not be afraid that she wouldn't listen to him in the future. Zi was so flustered that she didn't know what to say. The Rui pill could make people stay young. It was something that all women dreamed of. She took a long time to calm down and said, Yu Qianqiu, thank you. Unexpectedly, Yu Qianqiu stood up and said disappointedly, hey. Originally, this pill could be sold for at least 100 million upper spiritual stones. It might even be more than that. I kept it for myself for a long time, but I can't let you work with me for nothing. Just take it that you've done me a favor and I'm paying you for it. Now that you've taken my salary, you can't throw a tantrum in the future. When Zi heard this, she couldn't be excited anymore. She stood there with an idiotic look on her face. According to Yu Qianqiu, this was a time when they needed money. Did she eat 100 million just like that? Could it be more than 100 million? Moreover, Yu Qianqiu couldn't bear to eat it himself, but he gave it to her. She really owed him a big favor. She might not be able to repay him. Just when the two of them were speechless, Wu Lixue walked in from outside. Her face was pale and she didn't look good. When she saw Yu Qianqiu, she actually bowed and said, "My grandfather and the others are outside the courtyard. They want to come in and greet you." Yu Qianqiu was surprised and said, "Shui, what's wrong? Are you feeling unwell?" He walked over and wanted to touch her forehead. Unexpectedly, Wu Lixue immediately took a few steps back as if she was avoiding a thief. This made Yu Qianqiu's caring hand miss. This time, Yu Qianqiu was even more surprised. How did a lively and lovely woman who was in love become like this? There must be a big change. He then narrowed his eyes and said in a low voice, "Shui, what's wrong with you? Did someone bully you? Who dares to touch my woman? Tell me, I'll kill his whole family." Wu Lixue didn't say anything. Whenever Yu Qianqiu took a step closer, she would take a step back. Yu Qianqiu was instantly anxious. He chuckled coldly and said, "You don't want to tell me, right? I'll go out now and kill everyone I see. I'll definitely find someone who knows." After speaking, he let out a cold snort and flung his sleeves before rushing out. Yu Qianqiu was famous in the cultivation world for daring to do anything. Otherwise, he wouldn't have the titles of scum and lunatic. Wu Lixue often cared about him, so she naturally heard of his deeds. She definitely believed that he could really start a massacre in the Wu clan. She immediately blocked the door and pleaded, "Yu Qianqiu, don't be reckless. I'll tell you." "Say it. What exactly is going on?" Yu Qianqiu asked in a deep voice. Wu Lixue had a painful expression as she bit her lips and said, "I heard that you are my clan's old ancestor's personal disciple. Even my grandfather and the others have to respect you as a teacher. It is against the rules for us to be together." Just as everyone entered in a single file, Yu Qianqiu's eyes suddenly flashed with a trace of fierceness. A clump of green flames that had been raised to the extreme suddenly appeared in his hand, and he suddenly shot it at Wu Zhengang, who was passing by. At such a close distance, Wu Zhengang was unprepared. Before he could react, he was enveloped by the raging green flame. "Ah!" A short scream resounded through the quiet guest house. As the green flame disappeared, Wu Zhengang had already turned into ashes. Yu Qianqiu snorted coldly. "No matter what intentions you had when you said those words to Wu Lixue, I will kill you. Whatever intentions you have will be for naught." The people of the four major clans suddenly looked over and were instantly stunned. But Yu Qianqiu put on a smiling face, as if nothing had happened. He raised his hand and said, "Everyone, take a seat inside. I was just about to discuss the matter of the saber drawing assembly with everyone. Please." He took the lead and walked into the hall. Chapter 368. He could act as though nothing had happened, but it was impossible for the Wu clan to act as though nothing had happened. Especially with Wu Zhenggang's status, which was only slightly inferior to the clan head, Wu Sihai. He already had a group of followers in the Wu clan. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone against the clan head, Wu Sihai. Wu Sihai was stunned on the spot, and the group was dumbfounded. The first to react was Wu Zhenggang's backer, Wu Bao. He teleported in front of Yu Qianqiu and clenched his fists so hard that they made cracking sounds. His face was completely red as he shouted angrily, "Yu Qianqiu, you, how am I impudent?" Yu Qianqiu smiled with his eyes squinted. The group recovered from the shock. The 5 clan elders from the 4 major clans teleported over and stood in between the two of them, but they didn't know what to say. Especially Bai clan's clan elder, Bai Yunshan. In terms of seniority, Yu Qianqiu was their clan's senior. To the other 3 clans, it wasn't an overboard thing to disobey the teachings of their ancestors from 2,000 years ago. Therefore, now that Yu Qianqiu had killed a Wu clan elder, Bai Yunshan was the most embarrassed. He couldn't help, but he couldn't not either. After all, Yu Qianqiu was backed by his clan's proud ancestor. But it wasn't right for Yu Qianqiu to kill someone without a reason. Bai Yunshan guarded against Wu Bao and asked Yu Qianqiu, why did you kill Wu Zhengang? If you don't give a reasonable reason, I'm afraid the Wu clan won't tolerate you. The 4 clan heads looked at each other and didn't say a word. It was better to let the 6 clan elders handle such a troublesome matter. Reason? There were plenty of reasons. Yu Qianqiu sneered, you are Bai Yunshan from the 4 major clans, right? Bai Yunshan frowned and nodded, yes. Good. I didn't tell you my identity before, but I believe you have guessed it. I will tell you now. Yu Qianqiu cupped his fists and bowed towards the Fey Ghost region and said, my master is the world's #1 expert, the Fey Ghost region's punishment enforcer, a late-stage soul formation cultivator, by Changchun. Yu Qianqiu was ordered by my master to handle some matters. Now that I have met my master's descendant, the Bai clan's descendant, should greet him respectfully. Although everyone already knew Yu Qianqiu's identity, the shock they felt when they heard it from his mouth was indescribable. Bai Yunshan and Bai Shouji were so moved that their lips were trembling. Without saying a word, they obediently walked to Yu Qianqiu and knelt down. Bai Yunshan sincerely bowed and said, the descendants of the Bai clan are indebted to our ancestors, allowing us to survive for more than 2,000 years. We dare not forget our ancestors. Descendant Bai Yunshan and son Bai Shouji kowtowed to Mr. The 2 of them immediately kowtowed as soon as they finished speaking. They were still extremely excited. The reason why the 2 of them were so excited was that Yu Qianqiu's words had stimulated the proudest part of their hearts. Who in the cultivation world dared to claim to be the world's #1 expert? The ancestor of the Bai clan dared to do so. Who in the world could control the demon ghost domain where demons and ghosts roamed freely? It was their ancestor. How many cultivators of the late deity stage were there in the world? Their ancestor was one of them. The glory of their ancestors would naturally shine on their descendants. The 2 of them could not help but be excited. After kowtowing, father and son were still kneeling there, waiting for Yu Qianqiu to wake them up. Yu Qianqiu graciously accepted their greetings. Then, he looked at the other 3 clans and said, after all, the 3 of you are not my master's bloodline descendants. Although you all follow the teachings of your ancestors and regard my master as your ancestor, I dare not ask too much of you. However, if you receive a drop of kindness from someone, you must repay it with a gushing spring. If the 4 great clans are willing to kowtow and pay their respects, then do so now. Hearing this, the clan leaders and clan elders of the Tan clan and the Jing clan also kneeled down and paid their respects. The people of the Wu clan instantly looked at each other. Logically, they should go and pay their respects. However, Yu Qianqiu had just killed Wu Zhengang. Moreover, he had not given a reason yet. Who could bring themselves to bow and pay their respects? If they wanted to pay their respects, Yu Qianqiu could have just given any reason. But what was going on now? Could it be that this kid wanted to break up the 4 great clans? Wu Sihai looked at Yu Qianqiu with a gloomy expression. When Yu Qianqiu asked the people of the 3 clans to stand up, he suddenly winked at him. Wu Sihai was momentarily stunned. Then, he immediately realized what was going on. In his heart, he immediately prostrated himself in admiration. This kid was really something. Not only did he kill Wu Zhengang for revenge, he also solved the problem of seniority with Shuai. His intelligence and ability to respond to emergencies were really outstanding. I have accepted your 3 clans' greetings and confirmed my status with your 3 clans. The Wu clan is not willing to pay their respects to me. Naturally, there is no seniority relationship between me and the Wu clan. Of course. Yu Qianqiu looked at the Wu clan and said, I personally cannot represent my master. This is a matter between me and your Wu clan. Your 4 major clans will still be your 4 major clans. There is no need for you to tie everything together endlessly. The development of the matter didn't exceed Wu Sihai's expectations, but he didn't know that Yu Qianqiu had another reason for doing this. It wasn't easy to get the Wu clan's money because of Wu Lixue, but the other 3 clans weren't weak either. He had to find a way to get them to fork out some money. He had already thought it through. Since Bai Changchun had given the authority to him, the old fellow wouldn't mind if he were to get some money from his descendants. The matter of seniority has been clarified. Now, let's talk about Wu Zhengong's matter. There is no hurry to settle everything one by one. Yu Qianqiu turned to the other 3 clans and said, "Your 3 clans might be curious why I wanted to kill Wu Zhengang. If the Wu clan hasn't forgotten about the reason, you should be clear about it. Why don't your 3 clans ask the Wu clan?" The hall went silent, and only Wu Bao was still panting with rage. In fact, the 4 major clans knew about the grudge between Yu Qianqiu and Wu Zhengang. They also knew that Yu Qianqiu said he would take Wu Zhenggang's life. It was just that this matter happened too suddenly, and even the victim didn't have time to react. The other 3 clans might have confirmed the seniority with Yu Qianqiu, but they were all flesh, and it wouldn't be good to help anyone. I refuse to accept this. Wu Bao roared and looked at everyone. Yu Qianqiu might be the old ancestor's disciple, but what right does he have to kill wantonly in my Wu clan? What right does he have? Don't implicate my master. I am only asking you, what right does that Wu Zhengang have to kill me? Could it be that he doesn't need a reason to kill others, but others need a reason to take revenge? Tell me, what right does Wu Zhengang have? Could it be that just because you are his backer in the Wu clan, he can act unscrupulously? Yu Qianqiu spoke with an icy cold tone. Wu Bao opened his mouth. He knew that what Yu Qianqiu said was the truth, and everyone knew about this matter. Wu Bao didn't know how to refute. Most importantly, he couldn't reason with Yu Qianqiu, and he couldn't use force either. Be it reasoning or forcing logic, Yu Qianqiu had never been afraid of anyone. Yu Qianqiu stared at Wu Bao and spoke in a deep voice, "I don't wish to have any impulsive conflict with the Wu clan. Since you don't accept me, I can make an exception and bring you to the demon ghost region to meet my master. I will let my master decide the right and wrong. I wonder if my master's words can convince you." Hearing that they were going to meet Bai Changchun, everyone's eyes were fixated on Wu Bao. It was unknown if they were envious or worried, but Wu Bao was instantly speechless. "This matter will be put aside for now. After I settle the matter that my master instructed, my master and your ancestor will decide the right and wrong of this matter. What do you think?" Yu Qianqiu looked at everyone and asked. "I agree." Wu Zhen took the lead to agree, and Wu Rui nodded as well. Wu Sihai naturally didn't have anything to say, let alone the other Wu clan's elders. Finally, the 4 major clans decided to put this matter on hold and wait for Bai Changchun to handle it. Yu Qianqiu nodded and said, "All right, since everyone has agreed, we will put aside the grudges for now. The saber drawing meet still needs to borrow your Wu clan's venue, and we will need your Wu clan's help for this matter. Let us discuss this matter first." Chapter 369. The holding of the saber drawing ceremony could be said to have set off a huge uproar in the cultivation world. A treasured saber from the Eastern Holy Land. This gimmick alone was enough to attract people. What kind of place was the Eastern Holy Land? It was an ancient battlefield where ancient spiritual treasures had been used for generations. No one knew how many mysterious things were left there. In addition, Yu Qianqiu had defeated the Daluo sect master with this saber, so it was hard not to be jealous. The major sects gathered their masters and counted the spirit stones in their storage. They were all full of confidence and prepared to get the saber back. Some small sects that were not strong enough also asked their ancestors to help. Some small sects that did not have enough spirit stones even borrowed money from everywhere to give it a try. Who wouldn't be tempted by a mere 10 million spirit stones that could possibly be exchanged for a spiritual treasure? After all, the saber was very strange. It was not something that could be obtained by someone with a high cultivation level. Luo Qingtian's cultivation level was high, right? He still could not take it away. Yu Qinzhou's cultivation level was not high, right? He still chased Luo Qingtian everywhere with the saber in his hand. For a time, no one in the cultivation world mentioned the fact that Yu Qianzhou defeated Luo Qingtian. Everyone was concerned about who could take the saber away. It was very likely to be a spiritual treasure. Whoever got it, even if they did not have the fortune to enjoy it, they could still auction it at the Wu clan. That would be a big profit. At this time, Yu Qianzhou released important news to the outside world through the 4 major families. I, Yu Qianzhou, am really ashamed that I have alarmed the entire cultivation world because of this small matter. Good things come in pairs. I am willing to take out the other treasured saber for the saber drawing contest. Both sabers will be drawn at the same time, so that those who have the ability to get this saber will not return empty-handed. The cultivation world was shocked again. If some people felt that there was no hope for 1 saber, then there was much more hope for 2 sabers. Therefore, all the sects were actively preparing spirit stones. Big sects like the Fuxian Island and the 10,000 Demons had many talents and strong financial resources. They were even more prepared to get the 2 sabers in one go. The East Sea was far away, and the blue waves surged to the heavens. Seabirds soared on a lonely island in the sea. It was unknown when many more buildings had appeared between the mountains, but on the waist of the highest peak on the island, there was even a grand palace that was neither too big nor too small. The island was a nameless island, but the palace was called the Limitless Palace. Therefore, the island was also called the Limitless Island. The owner of the Limitless Palace was none other than the father and son of the Yen family who were forced to flee overseas. Within the palace, Yen Bugue was at the entrance of the terrifying crypt, anxiously pacing back and forth with his fists clasped. Purr. Purr. Mournful howls could be heard coming from the crypt, and the sound was extremely heart-wrenching. Yen Bugue was so anxious that his forehead was full of sweat. He stopped in his tracks and leaned against the entrance of the crypt, tears streaming down his face. After a long time, the screams stopped, but heavy breathing could still be heard from inside. At this moment, 7 people dressed in distinctive clothing walked out one after another. All 7 of them were drenched in sweat, as if they had been soaked in water. The leader was a burly man with a leather waistcoat and a black cloak. His bare arms were drenched in sweat. Seeing them come out, Yen Bugue rushed over and pulled that man, asking anxiously, "State Preceptor Man how's the star chasing?" The man called State Preceptor Man who let out a long breath and nodded, "It's a success. Young Palace Master's wisdom is indeed extraordinary. For so many years, countless people have died under the 7-star blood-piercing technique, but no one has ever succeeded. To think that young Palace Master actually made it through." Hearing that it was a success, Yen Bugue was anxious to see his son. He wanted to rush into the crypt, but was pulled back by the State Preceptor Man The latter shook his head and said, "Palace Master Yen, it's better not to go in now. Young Palace Master has just formed his devil body through the 7-star blood-piercing technique, and his wisdom has changed greatly. I'm afraid that no one will recognize him for the time being. If you go in, it might cause a misunderstanding. Please wait patiently for a day." "Devil body?" Yen Bugue exclaimed, "What devil body? What did you say? What did you do to the star chasing?" "Palace Master Yen, don't be impatient." Man who comforted kindly, "It's not that we want to hide it from you, but young Palace Master asked us to do this. He said that he doesn't want you to worry. Now that the devil body has been formed, young Palace Master's future cultivation speed will increase by leaps and bounds. He will have great achievements in the cultivation world." Yen Bugue was after all not a 3-year-old child. After knowing that his son was fine, he quickly calmed down. However, he still had a gloomy expression on his face as his gaze swept over the 7 of them. He said in a deep voice, "You'd better not hide anything from me. If you dare to plot against us father and son, we'll just perish together. No one will have an easy time. Palace Master Yen is worrying too much. You and I have sworn an oath. We will help you unify China's cultivation world, and after we succeed, you will use the entire China's power to help us find the star bead." Man who nodded and looked outside the main hall and said, "It is said that in the ancient era, there was not only the immortal world and underworld. There was also a world called the demon world. It's said that the demon world is a place that even the immortal and netherworld fear. However, someone sealed the passage to the demon world, so the ancient demon path faded out of people's sight. Until now, very few people know about it. There is such a thing. This old man comes from the demonic Tao. How can I not know about this?" Yen Bugue was surprised. Man who laughed and said, "The difference between Palace Lord Yen's devil Tao and righteous Tao is that the devil Tao is different. The ancient devil Tao is the true great Tao. Compared to the current devil Tao, it's like a grain of rice trying to compete with the bright moon. It's not worth mentioning, really not worth mentioning." "Then how do you know about it?" Yen Bugue asked doubtfully. Man who proudly said, 200 years ago, I became the state preceptor of the Di-Rong Empire. I happened to find a set of rare animal skin ancient books in the collection of ancient books in the inner palace. But because the characters on it were too old, no one could recognize it. So, it was left unused. Coincidentally, my master is an expert in ancient texts. I have been cultivating with my master for many years and have dabbled in it. So I recognize the origin of this book." "What origin?" Yen Bugue couldn't help but ask. "Devil Book." Man whose expression was solemn as he slowly said, "It simply introduces some matters of the ancient demonic Tao. In fact, it is a set of devil arts." Chapter 370. Great Devil Arts. Yen Bugue savored these words and suddenly felt uneasy. The sudden palpitation in his heart was hard to describe. It was as if one was trapped in a swamp, oppressed to the point of being unable to breathe. Both of them seemed to have the same feeling. After looking at each other for a long time, Man who continued, "According to the records of the demonic book, once a devil art is completed, even in the immortal and netherworld, there would be few opponents, not to mention the cultivation world experts." "Is it really so powerful?" Yen Bugue cried out in shock. "I won't hide it from Palace Lord Yen, this is only one side of the story in the demonic book, no one knows the truth." Man who said with a serious expression, "But the cultivation method recorded in the book is beyond our knowledge, even a spirit-severing expert like my master found it unimaginable. After my master personally translated the demonic book, he ordered me and my fellow apprentices to find people with extraordinary physiques to experiment on. But what was regrettable was that after experimenting with over 1,000 people, not a single one was able to successfully build their body." "What?" Yen Bugue's expression twitched as he said sternly, "Man who, how dare you use my son for such a vicious experiment?" "Palace Lord Yen, please calm down." Man who consoled, "It was not me who used the young palace lord as an experiment, but the young palace lord himself requested it. One day, the young palace lord asked me what was the strongest cultivation method in the world. I said that I didn't know which magic art was the strongest, but I knew that there was a very strong magic art. It was the strongest magic art that I knew of. The young palace lord immediately asked me, so I told him about the demonic book. In fact, I only said it casually, but who knew that the young palace lord would take it seriously and pester me every day? I was forced to lend him the demonic book, and the result was beyond my expectations. After the young palace lord read it, he resolutely decided to serve the devil and cultivate the demonic book. This was too dangerous, so I asked him to discuss it with you first, but not only did the young palace lord not allow us to tell you, he even asked us to help him conceal it. Unfilial son, unfilial son. After Yen Bugui roared, he stared at man who with bloodshot eyes. Didn't you tell him that there was no successful cultivation method before? If you want to practice demonic arts, you must first build a demonic body. Man who sighed and said, I naturally told young palace master about the previous failures, but young palace master's strong determination is simply unimaginable. We had no choice but to lie to you with the excuse of using a secret technique to increase our cultivation. Fortunately, the young palace master's mind is incomparably strong, and he actually managed to resist the 7-star blood-stabbing art, which is an unbearable torture for ordinary people, and brazenly established his devil body. Even I am surprised. Unfilial son, unfilial son. Yen Bugui kept murmuring like an injured tiger, breathing heavily. It could be seen how important Yen Juixing was to him. Barbarian Tiger and the others exchanged glances and were about to leave quietly to give him some time to calm down. Yen Bugui asked, what about the 7 late-stage nascent soul cultivators under my command? They went in with you. Why didn't they come out? The 7 of them looked at each other in dismay. Man who awkwardly said, those people, I won't hide it from Palace Master Yen, the reason why the young Palace Master was able to establish his devil body is because of their nascent souls and blood essence. What? Yen Bugui suddenly looked up and said, you mean they are already dead? Man who silently nodded and said, they have already sacrificed themselves for the young Palace Master. Who would be willing to give up their lives? Yen Bugui was not a fool. With his son's cultivation, it was impossible to force any of the 7 to sacrifice themselves. It must have been done by the 7 late-stage transcending tribulation cultivators, but what could he say? Ding lang, ding lang. At this moment, the sound of chains being dragged came from the back of the hall, causing them to turn their heads. Shortly after, a person covered in blood and tattered clothes came out. His limbs and waist were dragging thick chains. When the person saw the people in the hall, he stopped and looked at them. His blood-red eyes caused them to tremble. If this person was not Yen Juixing, who else could it be? But with such an appearance, no one dared to recognize him. A handsome and elegant man had actually become like this. It was really hard to believe. The atmosphere in the main hall suddenly became strange. Man Hu and his fellow disciples all had a grave expression on their faces. After Yen Juixing's devil body was formed, they had used several thick black iron chains to lock him up. They were afraid that he would run out and cause trouble while his divine sense was not awake. Who knew that he would actually break the chains? How could he do that with his current cultivation? Xing how are you? Yen Bugui regained his composure and was about to walk over to investigate, but Man Hu and the other 6 blocked his path and said, Palace Lord Yen, be careful, young Palace Lord is still in a daze, unable to differentiate between friend and foe. Let him go. Yen Juixing raised his hand that was dragging the chains and pointed at the people blocking Yen Bugui. But the voice was a bit strange, cruel and emotionless. It was a bit scary. But he clearly still had an impression of Yen Bugui. He still recognizes me, he still recognizes me. It was really festive, and there was less of the oppressive atmosphere of competition. On the other hand, Yu Qianqiu was wearing a red ribbon with a big red flower pinned on his chest. He wandered around the square, warmly cupping his hands in front of his face, and beaming with joy when he saw people. Whether they knew each other or not, he could not stop smiling. Chapter 371. This sect should be able to fork out 100 million. This sect should not be too poor. Corpse sect, a big sect, rich. Yu Qianqiu didn't care about the others pointing at him. He happily wandered around. In truth, he was looking around to see what kind of people had come. He had caused such a huge commotion, and he was already prepared to rake in 2 billion high-grade spirit stones. Looking around, he slowly felt that 2 billion spirit stones wouldn't be a problem. Therefore, he laughed even more happily. Even if he saw a disciple from a small sect, he would be the first to greet him with a warm, good, good, good. All the disciples who met him were flattered and praised him in their hearts. No wonder he could make such a big name in the cultivation world. He was amiable and didn't put on any airs. Just this point alone showed that ordinary cultivators couldn't compare to him. It seemed that the words of scum and madman were just rumors. Rumors did a lot of harm, so they couldn't be easily believed. Therefore, many disciples from various sects secretly made up their minds to treat Yu Qianzhou's way of dealing with people as a role model in the future. Wu Sihai's gaze always followed Yu Qianzhou, who was wandering around. To be honest, Wu Sihai was really afraid of this guy. Experience told him that wherever this guy went, there would be trouble. This rule was almost 100% proven. Wu Sihai looked around. He had a faint premonition that something bad would happen at the saber drawing conference. That guy was a jinx. Brother Yu. Laughter came. Yu Qianzhou looked back and saw that it was Qiu Weiyuan. He also smiled and cupped his hands. Senior Qiu. Brother, you are too polite. Qiu Weiyuan laughed. I have never seen someone as generous as you in the cultivation world. You are actually willing to take out the 2 treasures in your hands to choose a master. Rare, rare. Why does this sound a little weird? Are you doubting my sincerity? Yu Qianzhou felt disgusted in his heart, but on the surface, he was still polite and modest. You flatter me. Qiu Weiyuan smiled and stroked his beard. He looked around sneakily and suddenly said, Brother, you don't have to hide it from me. Is there any trick to getting these 2 treasures? Otherwise, how could Luo Qingtian's cultivation be weaker than yours? To be honest, I like these 2 treasures very much. If you are lacking in spirit stones, why don't you tell me? I will make the decision. The 10,000 demons will give you 200 million high-grade spirit stones. F***CK. You want to exchange 200 million for my 2 billion. And you still want to take it away. Yu Qianzhou's expression instantly turned serious, and he solemnly said, Senior Qiu, I, Yu Qianzhou, have always been upright and aboveboard. Besides, I'm not doing this for money. Senior, please help yourself. I will go and see how the preparations are going. He didn't want to be entangled with him, so he turned around and left. Qiu Weiyuan was stunned, and then he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It would be strange if you're not doing this for money. Do you really think everyone in the world is a fool? Everyone knows that you are relying on the sharpness of the treasures to get spirit stones empty-handed. How dare you say that you're not doing this for money? Sigh. It seems that the price is too low, and this kid doesn't want it. Yu Qianzhou, who was in a bad mood, walked to the temporary stage and asked Wu Sihai, Can we start? Let's wait for a while. Wu Sihai gestured to the empty tent on the left. Yu Qianzhou looked at the 10,000 demons on the right, and then looked at the empty seat on the left. Needless to say, who else could it be other than the Fuxian Island? He sighed and didn't know what to say. The so-called number 1 sect in the world, the Fuxian Island, should be more impressive. Their appearance was always the finale. While they were waiting, a group of people from supporting Immortal Island arrived. The one leading them was actually the Cultivation Pavilion's Wu Sihai. Behind him were more than a dozen top-notch experts from the Cultivation Pavilion, including Dongfang Changao. Most of these people knew Yu Qianzhou. When they saw Yu Qianzhou on the stage, they were all stunned. Wu Sihai shook his head and sighed. He led the group of people to their seats. Everyone quieted down. They knew that once the people from the Fuxian Island arrived, it would start. They all looked at the stage. You can start, Wu Sihai said to Yu Qianqiu. Yu Qianqiu nodded. Wu Sihai faced the crowd and said in a clear voice, "Everyone, there is no need to explain the rules of the saber drawing assembly. I believe that everyone has seen the notice posted outside. Those who are willing to participate, please come up and pay the spirit stones. There will be 2 people in a group." Ziyi and Wu Lixue, who were wearing red ribbons and big red flowers, walked out from the backstage. Yu Qianqiu had asked the 2 of them to be in charge of collecting the spirit stones. When the 2 beauties appeared on the stage, they attracted a lot of attention. However, most of the people in the tent were looking around. No sect or person came out first. The small sects were too embarrassed to come out first. They were afraid of offending the big sections. The big sects, on the other hand, put on airs. This was probably the demeanor of the big sects. After waiting for a long time, everyone was still looking at each other. No one came out. They had already come, so what was the point of putting on airs? It was simply a waste of time. 1 minute was 10 million high-grade spirit stones. Yu Qianqiu raised his eyebrows and jumped off the stage. As he walked, he pulled out a big black machete from his storage bag. His movements were neat and tidy. Everyone's eyes immediately fell on the 2 machetes. The calm atmosphere in the field was suddenly broken. Everyone was a little eager to try. In the center of the field were 2 black circles with a diameter of 2 meters. There was a distance of 3 meters between them. They were 2 black iron discs buried deep in the ground. Before Yu Qianqiu reached the center, the 2 machetes in his hands were thrown into the air. The 2 machetes fell from the air and stabbed into the center of the discs. The 2 machetes were about 2/3 of the way into the discs. Just the sharpness of the machetes, which cut through the black iron like tofu, made everyone gasp in surprise. No wonder even the sword of the Daluo sect master was cut in half. Just this sharpness alone is not something ordinary magic weapons can compare to. Someone discussed. The Daluo sect was not absent among the sections. When they heard this, their expressions changed. Yu Qianqiu walked to the center of the 2 machetes, looked around, and said in a clear voice, "These 2 treasured machetes are here. If no one comes to participate in 2 hours, then I, Yu Qianqiu, will personally pull out these 2 machetes and end this conference. The rules of the saber drawing conference do not stipulate that I cannot personally participate. However, after this, no one should say that I, Yu Qianqiu, did not keep his promise." These words were spoken with a resoluteness that left no room for doubt. As soon as he finished speaking, he walked back to the stage with a gloomy face under everyone's gaze. From beginning to end, there was not the slightest bit of sloppiness. Wu Sihai looked at the returning Yu Qianqiu with a look of approval. Then, he looked at his granddaughter, and a satisfied smile appeared on his face. This time, the crowd could not sit still. Almost all the people in front of the tents from the sect stood up with storage bags in their hands. At this moment, someone suddenly shouted, "Let me, 10,000 demons, take the lead." A figure flashed out. It was Qiu Weiyuan. However, almost as soon as he appeared, his old rival, Dongfang Chang Ao, flashed out and stood beside him. He said proudly, "Since Brother Qiu is personally going, how can I, Dongfang Chang Ao, not accompany you?" If you don't have the confidence, don't force yourself. Otherwise, the backlash from these 2 treasured sabers is not something an ordinary person can withstand. Yu Qianqiu suddenly shouted. Hearing that, all the sects looked at Yu Qianqiu and cursed him in their hearts. Why didn't you say it earlier or later? Why did you wait until the other party paid up? Aren't you just trying to scare them? However, when they thought about how he said that these treasured sabers had developed a spirit of their own, their bodies trembled, and the words, spiritual treasure, appeared in their minds. Dongfang Chang, Ao and Qiu Weiyuan did not notice anything wrong with the sabers in front of them. They looked at each other tacitly and reached out to grab the sabers with solemn expressions. The group of people who were watching also had their hearts in their throats, especially the people from supporting Xian Island and the 10,000 demons. Buzz. The two sabers suddenly let out two sounds of their own. Dongfang Chang, Ao and Qiu Weiyuan's expressions immediately changed. A bone-chilling coldness instantly emanated from the sabers, directly resisting the approaching hands. Then, a ruthless and cold aura of death pressed on. The two of them immediately felt a little dazed, and their bodies became a little weak. Something's wrong. Someone exclaimed. Everyone also realized that something was wrong. The two of them were sent out by the number one sect of the righteous path and devil path to keep up appearances, so it was needless to say that their ability to respond to emergencies was extraordinary. After feeling that something was wrong, they subconsciously bit the tip of their tongues, and the pain woke them up. They both retreated, and in a flash, they were more than 10 meters away. Their faces were full of shock as they shouted, "Good sabers!" Everyone immediately stood up. Luo Qingtian had lost an arm to save his life, and Dongfang Chang, Ao and Qiu Weiyuan could not even get close to it. The three tribulation passing stage experts' attempts had confirmed the power of this saber without a doubt. Many people's gazes towards the Daluo sect had changed. They were no longer looking at the Daluo sect with mockery. Instead, there was a hint of admiration in their eyes. Luo Qingtian, Dongfang Chang, Ao, and Qiu Weiyuan were all cultivators who had advanced to the middle stage of the tribulation passing stage. Although the former had lost an arm, he had once held this saber, and the latter too could not get close to it. From this, it could be seen that the Daluo sect leader was indeed not someone ordinary people could compare to. He truly lived up to his reputation. When the people from the Daluo sect felt everyone's gazes, their faces showed a little bit of pride. It was as if they were saying, "Now you know." It's not that the Daluo sect is weak, but that these two magic treasures are really powerful. At this moment, Dongfang Chang, Ao and Qiu Weiyuan released their aura shields at almost the same time. Just as they were about to draw their sabers again, they suddenly heard a dang 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 sound coming from the main platform. The two of them turned around and saw that Yu Qianqiu was holding a gong in his hand. Yu Qianqiu pointed at the hourglass with the gong in his other hand and said with a smile, "Seniors, I'm sorry, time is up. It's time for the next group to go up. Please step down for the time being." Time was up so soon. 10 million high-grade spirit stones were gone just like that. Not to mention the two people who drew their sabers, everyone's eyes were focused on the hourglass. They were deeply suspicious of the hourglass's effect. In fact, they had wronged Yu Qianqiu in this matter. It was just that everyone was so engrossed in the competition that they forgot about the time. Although Yu Qianqiu had the idea of tampering with the hourglass, he was worried that there were too many people present and was afraid that he would be exposed, so he dismissed the idea. Dongfang Chang, Ao was stunned, while Qiu Weiyuan was furious. Yu Qianqiu ignored them and shouted, "In order to save time, we will arrange the matches according to the order in which the spirit stones are paid. Those who pay first will go up first." Wu Sihai frowned when he heard that. Even if they wanted to earn money, they didn't have to do it so blatantly. He couldn't say anything, so he quietly retreated backstage. If he continued to stand in front of the stage, he really couldn't afford to lose face. On the other hand, his granddaughter, Wu Lixue, looked at the various sects with excitement. There was a lot of money to collect. The various sects were speechless. Although they knew that Yu Qianqiu was obviously trying to get money, who would give up? Wasn't everyone here for the treasure? However, this Yu Qianqiu was really good at messing around. If others had such a treasure, they would hide it, but he took it out openly to cause trouble, making it inconvenient for those who wanted to steal the treasure. They could only wait until he was alone in the future. Dongfang Chang Ao and Chiu Weiyuan did not return after a long time. The sects that the two belonged to immediately understood that they wanted to try again. Immediately, the two sects brought a storage bag to the stage and paid another sum of spirit stones for them. Yu Qianzhou waited for the two ladies to confirm the amount, then smiled at the two who did not go up. "Seniors, please continue." Wu Liqing, who was below the stage, turned the hourglass upside down. "This guy is too practical." Dongfang Chang and Chiu Weiyuan's expressions twitched. They did not want to argue with this greedy guy now to avoid wasting time. The vigor shield on their bodies became brighter and brighter, and they flashed in front of the two swords. Just as everyone was staring at them, they suddenly saw the two of them raise their heads to look at the sky. Then, they quickly retreated. Swoosh! A cold light shot down from the sky, and with a bang, a large hole was blasted in between the two swords. A wave of air spread to the surroundings, and a flying sword flew out from the hole, turning into a cold light and shooting back into the sky. Many people immediately flashed out from the sheds around them. They looked up into the sky, and saw a flying instrument slowly descending under the crowd's gaze. F***CK. Someone is causing trouble. Yu Qianzhou raised his eyebrows, turned around, took the 4 storage bags from Zi and Wu Lixue, and threw them into his own storage bag. Just as he was about to go over to take a look, he saw more than 10 figures flashing out from behind him, and he stopped. Although he was angry that someone was disturbing him while he was making money, those who dared to cause trouble in such an occasion were not ordinary people. He decided to take a look first. "How dare you? Who dares to cause trouble here?" Chiu Weiyuan stared at the sky and shouted loudly. More than 10 experts from the 10,000 demons stood behind him, and all of them were staring at the sky like tigers watching their prey. The domineering aura of the Devil Dao was undoubtedly revealed. The flying instrument was suddenly taken away by someone in mid-air, and 8 figures landed in front of the crowd. Almost everyone knew the person in the lead. It was the original young palace master of the 100 Flowers Palace, Yan Zhuixing. And many of the 7 people behind him had met them before. They were Imperial Advisor Di Rong and Man Hu's senior and junior brothers. "Greetings, Martial Uncle Chiu. Greetings, martial uncles of the 10,000 demons." Yan Zhuixing courteously bowed to the 10,000 demons. The 10 people from the 10,000 demons were instantly discouraged, and they looked at each other in dismay. The domineering aura they had at the beginning was nowhere to be seen. Chiu Weiyuan looked around awkwardly, and said in a muffled voice, "What are you doing here?" The previous leader of the 10,000 demons, the grandson of his master, came to cause trouble. What else could he say? "If you don't have the confidence, then get out of the way." Dongfang Chang Ao sneered at Chiu Weiyuan rudely. These two people would not let go of any opportunity to mock each other. Chiu Weiyuan glared, but when he saw Yan Zhuixing beside him, he immediately shut his mouth speechlessly. "Yan Zhuixing, are you declaring war on the Chinese cultivation world?" Dongfang Chang Ao snorted coldly, a golden spear appearing in his hands at some point in time. "Senior Dongfang, you misunderstood. I heard that there is a saber drawing conference here, so I specially rushed here overnight to participate. I definitely have no other intentions." Yan Zhuixing smiled gently. "You are not welcome here, please leave." Dongfang Chang Ao held the golden origin treasure spear horizontally in his hand, and behind him stood a dozen experts from the cultivation pavilion of Fuxian Island. "Yes, you are not welcome here, go back." A group of people followed and jeered. Yan Zhuixing turned a blind eye to them and smiled faintly. "I heard that anyone can participate in this saber drawing conference as long as they can fork out 10 million upper-grade spirit stones. I wonder if Brother Yu, who is organizing this conference, is here." He looked around the crowd, and after a while, his eyes met with Yu Qianzhou's. Their eyes met and did not separate for a long time. Everyone in the cultivation world knew about the grudge between them. If not for Yu Qianqiu, the Yen father and son would not have been forced to flee overseas. Ha! So it's Brother Yen, long time no see. Yu Qianqiu jumped down from the stage and walked over. He cupped his fists and smiled from afar, as if he was an old friend who had not seen each other for a long time. Ziyi also felt that something was wrong and quickly followed behind him. Wu Lishue also did not want to be left behind. The crowd parted to let them in. Yan Zhuixing also smiled and cupped his fists. Indeed, long time no see. I have been sending people everywhere to ask about Brother Yu, but unfortunately, there has been no news. I finally see you today. Chapter 373. What good can you have for me? It's good that you don't fight with me. Yu Qianqiu touched his nose, and they looked at each other silently for a while. Suddenly, they laughed together. When they laughed, their eyes were still entangled with each other. Yu Qianqiu found that there was something missing in Yan Zhuixing's eyes. In the past, he could at least see some pretentious hypocrisy in it, but now, it was really cold. His eyes were unbelievably calm, as if they were carved out of ice. There was no emotion in them. Although he was smiling, his eyes were incompatible with his whole person. There was only indifference in his eyes that could not be concealed even if he wanted to. Yan Zhuixing also saw something from Yu Qianqiu's eyes. It was the sincerity and enthusiasm of meeting an old friend. However, Yan Zhuixing would not believe that a person who could make up a story to frame him would welcome him sincerely and enthusiastically. Yan Zhuixing looked away and glanced at the women on the left and right of Yu Qianqiu. He did not know Ziyi, so he just glanced over her. However, when his eyes fell on Wu Lishue, his cold and ruthless eyes actually showed signs of melting. He cupped his hands and said, "Miss Wu is also here. I didn't expect you to be even more beautiful than before. I don't know if you still remember me." As soon as he said this, the 7 brothers behind him exchanged a surprised look. They seemed to feel that it was a little unbelievable. Although Wu Lishue knew that Yan Zhuixing had a grudge with her man, it would be strange for a woman to be unhappy when someone praised her beauty. She smiled and nodded, but she did not say anything. Instead, she looked at Yu Qianqiu with a gentle gaze. At this time, Yan Zhuixing noticed that the man and the 2 women in front of him were wearing red flowers, which was quite a happy life. The smile on his face suddenly froze. He pointed at the big red flowers on the 3 people and said, "Brother Yu, what are you doing? Could it be that I came coincidentally to run into Brother Yu's happy event?" Ah. Yu Qianqiu followed his finger and looked at the flower on his chest. He quickly denied, No, it's just to add to the atmosphere of the sword-drawing event." As he spoke, he pointed at the red hanging in the surroundings. Yan Zhuixing looked over and realized that not only Yu Qianqiu and the other 2 were dressed like this, but many others were also dressed like this. He immediately stopped thinking about this matter and asked, "Brother Yu, I heard that this saber-drawing competition is held for the entire cultivation world. Anyone who can fork out 10 million upper-grade spirit stones can participate. But now someone wants to drive me away. I wonder what Brother Yu, the organizer, will say." He. In the past, he was so poor that he had to resort to robbery, but now he seemed to be rich. Yu Qianqiu rubbed his nose and glanced at the surrounding sections. He saw that everyone was staring at him. Their intentions were clear. They wanted him to get to know everyone. That. I, Yu Qianqiu, have always been a man of my words, but... Yu Qianqiu looked around and said, "There are no more seats here." He wanted to earn money now, but in front of all the sects, he could not blatantly go against them. He rejected them very tactfully. "It's fine. I don't dare to hope for a seat here. We can just find a place to stand. Yan Zhuixing said indifferently. Dongfang Chang Ao snorted and said, I already said that you are not welcome here. With Dongfang Chang Ao taking the lead, all the sects immediately followed and jeered, Get lost. You are not welcome here. Yan Zhuixing glanced at everyone coldly. Man who was behind him, walked forward and laughed, Why are you in such a hurry to drive us away? Could it be that there is no one in the cultivation world in China who can pull out this saber? Are you afraid that we will steal the limelight? A few of his fellow disciples laughed together. With the cultivation of the 7 of them at the end of the tribulation passing stage, they were confident that no one present could trouble them, so they were arrogant. When the various sects heard this, their faces were already filled with anger. They might make a move at any time. Yu Qianqiu didn't want to ruin his business at this moment. He pointed at the big hole in front of him and smiled bitterly to Yan Zhuixing, Brother Yan, I wonder which one of you made a move and destroyed this place. The 7th of the 7 man who brothers stood out and patted his chest, I saw that it was so lively down there, so I couldn't help but make a move. His arrogant look seemed to be saying, I did it, what can you do? Yu Qianqiu couldn't be bothered with him and complained to Yan Zhuixing, in order to rent this place, I paid 10 million high-grade spirit stones to the Wu clan as a guarantee. The moment you came, you want me to lose 10 million. What kind of logic is this? Forget it. Brother Yan and I are friends, so I will pay for it. Brother Yan better find a place to rest outside. Yan Zhuixing naturally understood the meaning behind his words. I paid 10 million for you the moment you came, and you still have the nerve to make things difficult for me. Old Seven's eyes widened as he stared at the hole and shouted, Nonsense. It won't cost more than 10 million to build this rundown place. Brother Yan, is this your subordinate? Why is he scolding me in front of my face? Yu Qianqiu's voice sank. He turned his head and said, Ze, make him shut up. He believed that even if Ze couldn't gain the upper hand, she would be able to scare the other party into being obedient. Otherwise, that soul formation stage father would be for nothing. Ziyi's expression changed at the mention of money because of Yu Qianqiu. She knew that there must be a motive for Yu Qianqiu to suddenly take out 10 million. Hearing that, she didn't say anything else. A purple shadow appeared and rushed at 7th brother. The speed was so fast that it was unbelievable. Everyone present was shocked. Old 7 immediately felt that something was wrong. He teleported into the air. Who would have thought that while the purple shadow was still below, another purple shadow appeared in front of him. Immediately after, a loud sound rang out in his face. He didn't know what happened, but he was slapped by someone. Don't look at this slap because it was from a woman. The strength of the slap was so strong that it made old 7's ears ring. The people below were speechless. A late-stage tribulation transcendent stage cultivator was actually slapped so easily. Stop! The 6 Marshall brothers shouted at the same time. They teleported to mid-air and immediately stopped the purple shadow. Who knew that the purple shadow was like a shadow among the 7 of them? It had obviously stopped her, but it appeared behind her again. It kept chasing after Lao Qi like a shadow, slapping her face again and again. It was so loud that it sounded like a slap after slap. Not only were the people on the ground stunned, but the 7 people in the sky were even more shocked. Although the opponent's movement technique was similar to teleportation consumed a lot of true essence, so it was impossible to use it so wantonly. Only deity transformation stage cultivators would be able to withstand such consumption, but ordinary deity transformation stage cultivators wouldn't dare to use it too much. Paw paw paw. The sound of slapping came from the air, one after another. After a total of 20 slaps, a purple shadow flashed among the 7 people and returned to Yu Qianqiu's side. Her pretty face was still cold. The people who were closer to her subconsciously took a step back. This woman was too terrifying. Yu Qianqiu smacked his lips and couldn't say anything. Wow! I picked up a treasure. Old man Bai has good taste. Yan Zhuixing's expression changed. He thought that he would be able to intimidate everyone by bringing 7 late-stage tribulation transcendent stage cultivators. He didn't expect that he would be beaten up by a woman as soon as he appeared. 7 late-stage tribulation transcendent stage cultivators. She fought as she pleased, and no one could stop her. This. Wu Lixue looked at Ziyi dumbfounded. She had been with Ziyi for a few days and knew that Ziyi's cultivation was high, but she didn't expect it to be so powerful. No wonder her man brought her along every day. Thinking of this, Wu Lixue was a little discouraged. It seemed that she couldn't help Yu Qianqiu with her cultivation. Supporting Immortals Island, 10,000 demons, and the people from other sects looked at Ziyi and Yu Qianqiu. They couldn't figure out how this guy got such a powerful woman by his side. Not only was she beautiful, but she was also obedient to him. The 7 people in the air were stunned. Old Seven's face was swollen like a pig's head, but he immediately used his power to reduce the swelling. The 7 people flashed back to Yan Zhuixing's side. Man who stepped forward and stared at Ziyi. We are not as skilled as you, so we have nothing to say. May I ask if you use the great art of shifting position? Ziyi's cold expression changed slightly. She looked at Man Hu in surprise. She didn't expect someone to recognize that she used the great art of shifting position, but she didn't reply. Yu Qianqiu also glanced at her. He remembered that when they were in the purple bamboo forest in the South Sea, the handsome old man Nongzhu seemed to have told her to use the form displacement transposition art to escape. Seeing that she didn't speak, Man Hu cupped his fists and said, "It must be the great art of shifting position." In this world, besides Mr. Nongzhu's great art of shifting position, there is no other movement technique that is so mysterious. May I know how to address you and Mr. Nongzhu? Although the people present weren't the top experts of their respective sects, they still had extraordinary experience. However, they had never heard of the great art of form displacement transposition and Mr. Nongzhu mentioned by Man Hu. They looked at Ziyi and Yu Qianqiu blankly. There was no time for them to interrupt. Ziyi's powerful appearance deprived them of the right to speak. Ziyi still didn't answer, but Man Hu wasn't unhappy at all. He sized her up for a moment, then suddenly nodded and said, "Just now, I heard the famous Yu Qianqiu of the cultivation world call young lady Ziyi. Young lady is also wearing purple clothes, so it shouldn't be wrong. It is said that Mr. Nongzhu of the purple bamboo forest in the South Sea has a female disciple named Ziyi, and she likes to wear purple clothes. I think he is talking about you. You know my master." Ziyi couldn't help but ask when she saw that he was speaking logically. However, this was also equivalent to telling everyone about her background. So it really is Miss Ziyi. Man Hu nodded and said with a smile, "Miss Ziyi has never asked about secular affairs. Why are you here? Is it possible that Mr. Nongzhu is also here? If he is really here, I hope you can introduce us to him. The 7 of us have heard of your name for a long time, and we look forward to meeting you." As he said this, he subconsciously looked around, and the other 6 people did the same. All the sects muttered to themselves, "Who is this Mr. Nongzhu? These 7 people seem to be afraid of him. What kind of person can make 7 experts at the late stage of the crossing calamity stage afraid of him?" "He didn't come." Ziyi replied coldly. At first, she was a little worried that she had hit her master's friend, but now that she knew that these 7 people didn't know her master, and only heard of him, her face became cold again. Hearing this, Man Hu and the others seemed to be relieved. Chapter 374. Tut tut. It seemed that the handsome Nongzhu was quite famous in the soul-forming stage. Yu Qianqiu looked at their reactions and fell into deep thought. Man who looked at Yu Qianqiu with a flicker in his eyes. He was afraid that it was not easy to make Nongzhu's disciple obey him. After thinking for a while, he took out another storage bag from his storage bag and handed it to Yu Qianqiu. He said, "My junior brother was reckless and destroyed the venue of the competition. Here are 10 million upper spiritual stones as compensation. I think you can let us participate in this saber drawing competition." Yu Qianqiu took the storage bag and used his divine sense to make a rough estimate. The number should be right. But it was a little difficult. Let them participate. The people of other sects might have objections and not let them participate. But he didn't want to return the 10 million upper spiritual stones to them. Alas! It was really a dilemma. Just as he was hesitating, Zi suddenly said, "You can only participate if you pay 10 million upper spiritual stones. If you don't have spiritual stones, you can leave." Her words were very rude, very powerful, and very straightforward. Hearing this, Yu Qianqiu was so surprised that he almost couldn't close his mouth. He was ecstatic. When did this stubborn girl become so smart? She cooperated so well. In fact, this was all his own masterpiece. He had educated a simple woman who had never seen the world to think about money. He didn't know how Nongzhu would react if she knew. All the sects looked at each other. The deterrent force of Ziyi's action was still there, so no one stood up to object for the time being. Man who was stunned. He really took out a bag of spiritual stones from his storage bag and handed it over. Ziyi took it and carefully confirmed the number. Then she nodded to Yu Qianqiu and gave it to him. Yu Qianqiu embarrassedly put the spiritual stones into his storage bag in front of everyone. He smiled awkwardly at Ziyi and said, "Since you said it's okay, let's continue the saber drawing competition." He looked at the crowd with a little guilty conscience. The people from the 4 great clans were speechless. They had casually told a lie and earned another 10 million. This kind of money was a little too easy. However, the people from the 4 great clans naturally wouldn't ruin his show, and all of them flashed back. Supporting Xian Island's Osihai shook his head and sighed as he looked at Yu Qianqiu. He was such a good disciple in supporting Xian Island. How did it become like this? It seemed that it was really hard for a rogue cultivator to live in the cultivation world. Maybe he was afraid of being poor. Not to mention that he even took out such a treasure, he had almost reached the point where he couldn't move at the sight of money. Sigh. Osihai sighed and said, "Go back." More than a dozen people from supporting Immortal Island returned to their positions. With Fu Xian Island taking the lead, the other sects could only reluctantly retreat. The place became empty again. Yu Qianqiu, we just handed over the spiritual stones, but we haven't started yet. How are we going to calculate it? Qiu Weiyuan shouted angrily. He and Dongfang Chang Ao hadn't entered the stage yet. Again. I, Yu Qianqiu, have always been fair. Seniors, let's start the time again. Yu Qianqiu hurriedly gestured to Wu Liqing to get ready. He turned back and smiled at Yan Zhuixing and the others. Brother Yan, please do as you please. After the 2 seniors finish this round, you can just send 1 person to the stage. With another 20 million, Yu Qianqiu didn't say anything else. He turned around and ran back to the stage. The 2 girls followed him. Yan Zhuixing looked at Wu Lishue's back with a complicated gaze. He turned around and led the 7 people to the entrance. There were already a lot of rogue cultivators at the entrance. They all looked at them with disgust. Yan Zhuixing and Man Who turned a blind eye to them, but Man Who's junior brothers were so angry that they gritted their teeth. Even though they were at the late stage of passing tribulation, they didn't have a seat here. If they were arrogant before, it wouldn't be a big deal. But now that they lost to Ze, it was suspicious that they were chased here. They were all masters at the late stage of passing tribulation, so it was hard for them to swallow their anger. Someone immediately transmitted his voice to Man Hu. Eldest senior brother, that Nongzhu is only at the mid-stage of spirit severing. Our master is at the late stage of spirit severing. Besides, this woman is only good at movement. If we really fight, we might be able to defeat her. Big senior brother, we came out this time to humiliate the Chinese cultivation world. Why are you so polite to her and humiliate us? Man Who looked back at the tall and skinny man and transmitted his voice to him. Second brother, I'm not afraid of her. Her master, Nongzhu, is a good friend of Bai Changchun. In the whole cultivation world, only Nongzhu hasn't taken an oath. Among the spirit-severing cultivators, only Nongzhu can enter the Chinese cultivation world at any time to disturb us. Master once told me that Nongzhu is used to being lazy and doesn't like to meddle. Besides, he won't make a move because of the other spirit-severing cultivators. Master told us that if we meet him, we should try to be patient and not give him an excuse to make a move. Otherwise, we won't be able to defeat him no matter how many people we have. Ze is his disciple. If we hurt his disciple, I'm afraid he will have a reason to make a move. That's easy. Master will kill Nongzhu himself. The tall and skinny man said disdainfully. You should know that two masters together are not Bai Changchun's match. Barbarian Tiger's words made the tall and thin man suddenly become silent. Although there was a big hole in the middle of the field, it didn't seem to affect the participants. Yu Qianqiu was also relieved. The two knives were stuck in the ground. After the accident, they weren't afraid that someone would steal them away. As soon as the timer started, Dongfang Chang, Ao and Qiu Wuyuan used their earth energy to protect themselves. Immediately, everyone put aside the previous incident and focused their attention on the two of them. Yu Qianqiu raised his eyebrows. Under the telepathic connection, the two knives had already started to release their power before the two of them got close. Wang. The two knives seemed to have sensed that someone had ill intentions towards them. They made two sounds again. Dongfang Chang, Ao and Qiu Wuyuan, who were closer, immediately felt a piercing chill in their hearts. What followed was a heart-palpitating aura of death. It was dense and oppressive, making them unable to resist and unable to get rid of it. The two of them were shocked. Only then did they realize that their earth energy protection couldn't withstand it. Yan Zhuixing, who was standing at the gate, was paying attention to the field. Just as the two knives made a sound, his pupils suddenly shrank. His eyes turned blood red in an instant and then disappeared. Everyone's attention was focused on the field. No one noticed the abnormality in his eyes. Yan Zhuixing inadvertently discovered that the two blades actually glowed with an indistinct shadow. Like a wisp of smoke, it curled up and spread out, enveloping a radius of nearly 10 meters. It didn't disperse for a long time, and just happened to include Dongfang Changgao and Qiu Wuyuan within it. What surprised him the most was that he could feel an endless aura of death in the smoke-like shadow with just his eyes. After his demonic body was formed, although he hadn't officially cultivated the great skills in the demonic book, his demonic eye had already formed along with his demonic body. The smoke-like shadow seemed to be his demonic eye's archenemy. The moment it appeared, it stimulated his demonic eye and caused it to show itself. Then, he forcefully suppressed it. Yan Zhuixing didn't understand why this happened. He squinted his eyes slightly. Dongfang Chang, Ao and Qiu Wuyuan didn't dare to hesitate. Otherwise, if the time was up, they would have given another 10 million to Yu Qianqiu for nothing. The two of them looked at each other. Almost at the same time, they suppressed the spherical earth energy protection on their bodies. It was as if they were wearing a glowing coat. In a flash, they appeared in front of the knives. With their strong willpower, they bit their tongues to resist the dizziness that would hit their nerves. 5 claws shrouded in earth energy reached out and grabbed the handle of the knives. The people from supporting Immortals Island and the 10,000 demons couldn't sit still anymore. One by one, they stood up and excitedly hoped that the two of them would succeed. The two of them actually wanted to use their speed to quickly pull the knives out. Naturally, Yu Qianqiu wouldn't let them do as they wished. Otherwise, if the knives were gone, where would he get the knives from? Moreover, once the knives were taken away, it would be too far away and out of his control. He would be exposed immediately. He was afraid that the person who got the knives would immediately be killed by the sudden appearance of the black fire. At that time, if his swindling business was exposed, it would be really inconvenient for him to come out and meet people. Just as the two of them stretched out their claws, a thick black mist emerged from the blade with a whoosh. The protective vigor chi on their bodies immediately made a sizzling sound, almost directly breaking through their protective vigor chi. The two of them were shocked. At a glance, they could tell that this black fog was the same as the black demon that corroded Luo Qingtian's arm. Once it touched their bodies, it would be terrible. Frightened, they quickly retreated. The black fog curled up and spread in the air. The two knives became calm again, but everyone's eyes were focused on them. Many people from supporting Immortals Island and the 10,000 demons sighed. They were so close to success, but they failed at the last moment. It was really a pity. Eldest senior brother, this knife can actually attack people on its own. This is impossible even for an ordinary spiritual treasure. Could it be that this knife is a high-grade spiritual treasure? The tall and thin man behind Man Who was shocked. It's very possible. Didn't they say that this item came from the Eastern Holy Land? Man Who said solemnly. The few of them suddenly became excited. Some people behind them suddenly snorted. The few of them just looked back coldly and didn't say anything. Their master was an expert in the late stage of the soul formation realm. He also had a few spiritual treasures, including a middle-grade one. The few of them had seen it before, but they had never seen a spiritual treasure that could attack automatically. They naturally put this item in the category of high-grade spiritual treasures. I didn't expect it. Eldest senior brother, we must find a way to get this treasure and offer it to Master. Old 7, who was beaten by purple dress, said excitedly. This knife is strange. Yan Zhuixing turned around and pointed at his eyes. The few of them understood that he already had the devil eye and could see things that others couldn't. However, Yan Zhuixing's cultivation wasn't at the stage where he could use voice transmission, so it wasn't convenient for him to ask in detail. Man Who nodded solemnly and said, spiritual treasures naturally have their own peculiarities. Otherwise, they wouldn't be called spiritual treasures. Then he asked the few junior brothers, it seems that they won't be able to get this treasure. It's our turn to send people. Who's going? Chapter 375. I'll go, the lanky second brother said. Be careful. If you can't do it, come back. Don't force it. Man Who nodded and instructed. In the field, Dongfang Chang, Ao and Qiu Wuyuan had already retracted their aura shield. Although the time was not up yet, the two of them felt that there was nothing they could do. If they forced themselves to draw the saber, they might even lose their lives. Each of them sighed and returned to their own tents in their own sections. On the stage, Yu Qianqiu was trustworthy. He held the gong of alarm and stared at the hourglass below until it was completely empty. Only then did he ring the bell to announce the end of the competition. On the other side, the lanky second brother had already slowly entered the field. Yu Qianqiu asked loudly, this round is short of one person. Who wants to go? He asked several times, but no one answered. From everyone's expression, it was obvious that no one wanted to go with Yan Zhuixing's people. Yu Qianqiu suddenly felt a little depressed. However, he had no way to force others to go, so he could only announce the start of the competition. The second brother looked around with a trace of disdain on his face. However, he was immediately shocked by the bone-piercing chill coming from the saber. He did not dare to underestimate it and also released his aura shield. However, the aura shield could not stop the aura of death. The second brother immediately felt himself entangled in endless despair. His spirit became illusory, and he wanted to give up this meaningless resistance. His whole body was also swaying. Not good. There's something wrong with the second brother. The senior and junior brothers were shocked. Second brother. Man who saw that the situation was not right. He immediately shouted, like a bolt from the blue. The second brother, who was immersed in the illusion, trembled and woke up. He thought, that was close. I was too careless. He steeled his mind and immediately walked toward the saber. With his cultivation, he was naturally much stronger than Dongfang Chang, Ao and Qiu Weiyuan in resisting the pressure coming from the saber. At this moment, Yu Qianqiu, who was on the stage, shouted, "The rules of the sword drawing competition have already been posted outside. Outsiders are not allowed to help in the sword drawing competition. If anyone dares to interfere, they will be declared a failure in accordance with the rules." Man who immediately cupped his hands and apologized, I'm sorry, I came in a hurry and didn't have time to look carefully, please forgive me." Then he turned around and shouted, "Old 7, go and find the rules of the convention posted outside." Since they were able to come here, they were naturally aware of the rules of the competition. But it was a pity that the second brother had been too careless earlier, and as the eldest senior brother, man who naturally couldn't help but remind him. Old 7 understood that eldest senior brother was looking for an excuse to step down, but when he turned around, he found that no one behind him made way for him, so he could only teleport out. Second brother also heard these words. He knew that eldest senior brother had lost face in front of so many people because of him. His heart was filled with gratitude, and he hardened his heart to pull the knife back. But as soon as he approached the knife, he also encountered the black demon that Dongfang Chang, Ao and Qiu Weiyuan had encountered before. The transparent protective aura shield flickered under the erosion of the black demon. Second brother was shocked. He didn't expect the black demon to be so powerful. No wonder the two people before retreated as soon as they encountered it. Man Hu and the others naturally saw that this was a sign of rapid consumption of Jinqi, and their hearts were in their throats. But this time, Man Hu learned his lesson and no longer shouted loudly. Instead, he transmitted his voice, "Second brother, if you can't do it, come back, don't force yourself." Second brother silently shook his head. He had made up his mind to pull out the knife. The experienced people of the various sects also saw that someone might be transmitting his voice to remind him of something. But this was a matter without evidence, and they couldn't say anything if they couldn't find any evidence. Relying on the profound cultivation of the final stage of the crossing tribulation, second brother's protective aura shield almost condensed into a solid form. It was as if he was wearing a glowing glove, and he unexpectedly grabbed the handle of the knife against the black demon. Yu Qianqiu's pupils shrank slightly, but he found that someone was staring at him instead of pulling out the knife. When he met that person's gaze, he saw that it was Yan Zhuixing who was staring at him. Yu Qianqiu smiled and nodded, but he snorted coldly in his heart. Wanting to pull out the knife like this is too easy. You're forcing me to kill you. Seeing that the knife was about to be pulled out by second brother, the faces of the various sects changed. If this was really the case, then the Chinese cultivation world would lose a lot of face. Although the other party's cultivation was at the final stage of the crossing tribulation, so many people couldn't fight against one person. Moreover, this was in their own territory. Wouldn't it be shameful? especially the people of Fuxian Island and the 10,000 demons, the leaders of the righteous and demonic sections. Their expressions were even more unsightly. They all regretted that they didn't let the consecrators of their sects personally take action. Just as second brother grabbed the knife handle, a raging black flame suddenly appeared on the body of the knife. In an instant, his entire body was wrapped inside, and the protective aura shield on his body was easily destroyed in an instant. Second brother, come back. Man Hu and the others no longer cared about the rules and shouted in alarm. Ah! Almost at the same time as they shouted, second brother had already flashed out of the black flame with a teleportation, but he still held his head and let out a mournful scream. For a cultivator at the final stage of the crossing tribulation to let out such a miserable scream, one could imagine the pain he was suffering. The people of the various sects all shivered in fear. Although second brother had flashed out of the black flame, he was like a piece of burning wood. The black flame stuck to his body and burned, and he couldn't get rid of it at all. Man Hu and the others flashed over, but they immediately didn't dare to get close to the terrifying power of the black flame. They could only shout and scream from afar, as if they had gone crazy. The eyes of the senior and junior brothers were bloodshot as they watched second brother's skin and flesh disappear in the blink of an eye, turning into a skeleton. The skeleton swayed, and in the end, even the skeleton collapsed and scattered on the ground. The black flame gradually died out, and a gust of wind blew past, and the scattered bones on the ground immediately withered and turned into flying ashes. The senior and junior brothers were dumbfounded as they looked at second brother's disappearing body. The people of the various sects were dumbfounded as they looked at the two knives. With such power, who could pull them out? Especially Dongfang Cheng, Ao and Chiu Wuyuan, the two of them were extremely glad that they had retreated when they saw Black Fiend. If they had really grabbed the knife handle and activated the black flame, they were afraid that they would end up like this person in front of them. The two of them looked at each other silently across the stage. It's over. When Yu Qianqiu saw everyone's expression, he suddenly came to a realization and sighed in his heart. With such a commotion, who would dare to pull out the knives? No one would spend money to throw away their lives. The raging black flame on the knives gradually subsided, and they silently stood there as calm as before. But at this moment, everyone could only use two words to describe these two knives: peerless murder weapons. Man Hu and his junior brothers were now left with 6 people, and they didn't even have the chance to collect second brother's corpse. 6 ferociously stared at Yu Qianqiu on the stage. The atmosphere was not good. Although in everyone's eyes, Yu Qianqiu's character wasn't very good, he had just killed a foreign tribulation passing realm expert, and gained face for the Chinese cultivation world. At this moment, everyone stood up with a hua sound, and coldly stared at Man Hu and the others, supporting Yu Qianqiu.